Today we're gonna talk with senior product designer from Adobe, Patricia Yu. I love this episode because we're not only going through the workflow and details like the idea of triple diamond, not double, triple diamond, but we're also expanding the topic of design systems. This is pretty much the first time I've heard that somebody includes conversational guidelines as part of their design system. I think this is incredibly interesting conversation, and you're gonna learn a lot about design systems, how they expand, how they grow, and how top companies use AI in their workflow. So welcome in the studio, Patricia Yu. Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Life After UI. This time we have Patricia from New York, from Adobe, and we're gonna talk a little bit about AI as always, and we're gonna explore some topics where how can we combine the traditional design process with AI tools. So Patricia, it's good to have you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Dan, for the intro. And yeah, excited to be on your podcast.
Sure. So, the when we spoke earlier, we discussed the design process, how it looks right now, and I see a lot of people approaching it in a different way. You know, some people still resort to pen and paper from the very beginning. Some people prefer to jump into AI from the very beginning and then just kind of work backwards from that. So, if you were to place yourself on a scale, scale, where do you think you are? What is your current design process?
Yeah. I think AI is still a growing tool and there's a lot of change going on in the industry. So I do think over time this will still change and continue to shift. But as of now, how I'm using AI is kind of throughout my workflow. So during brainstorming, AI tools are great for, understanding all of the use cases that you're building as an example, or just understanding if, you have everything captured. It's great for if you're doing blue sky thinking, you give AI some of your thoughts and AI could respond back with some of the things that you might, not be thinking of and just filling in the gaps over there. When you're prototyping, this is a big popular one right now. There's so many new cool prototyping tools out there. So, when you're exploring and putting all of your thoughts onto paper, AI tools could be a great partner there where it helps you kind of put some of those thoughts down quicker. And so you iterate faster and you get into more ideas faster as well. And I feel like even now, I know, Stan, we briefly talked about the double diamond and how that's evolving. I think the double diamond process still stands, but I almost see it as like a triple diamond now, if you will. Like you have your brainstorming diamonds and phases, and you have your development phases, but kind of like what happens after, right? Like I feel like now with AI, we're almost shifting into this section of evolving your product after its launch, and how do you monitor that kind of development and growth of that product that you've created. Now we can do that with AI and do that in a much shorter time as well. Yeah, I think AI is kind of there as a partner. You work with it throughout your process now, and even beyond of when you kind of hand it off as a designer.
Yeah, love the point that you said that right now maybe it's a triple diamond, you know? It
Yeah.
feels like, yeah, maybe in time we'll add like the fourth one as well. We'll see how it
Right,
evolves.
right.
But when it comes to the exploration, right? As you're working on a new feature, um, as of today, where do the most of exploration that you do, where does it happen? Does it happen on pen and paper in
Mhm.
Figma? And do you jump straight to prototype?
Yeah. I I personally, I think I mean, maybe this isn't a great thing. I should probably do more pen and paper stuff, honestly. Because it's such a great way to block out all of the unnecessary, buzz and just figure out kind of the key things that you want to convey to a user on pen and paper. I think pen and paper is um, a very simple but effective way to do that. And I feel like I do more of that when it's in collaboration work. Like if I'm with a team of people and we're in person, I do find myself doing more like pen and paper or like whiteboarding sketch out just to, convey my thoughts to other people or my team. But when I'm by myself, I find myself doing less pen and paper work. I'm more on Figma or on Cursor or on Claude, I would say these days. So I guess like diving into personal exploration, I do like to still work with Figma. I don't know if this is the same for other designers anymore. I wonder if they jump straight into like
Yeah,
Cursor or
yeah, it's hard to
prototype.
say, right?
Hard to say, yeah. But maybe, my traditional side is still like, "Ugh, I wanna just make sure that I have my thoughts down before I kind of reach out to AI and start collaborating with my, AI partner on these ideas." I like to first start with Figma, start with like a basic wireframe, a mid fidelity wireframe, have a few use cases down and have like all of, my thoughts down on Figma first. And then I would feed that into like a cursor or a Claude to kind of see like, okay, now, these are my use cases. This is the general idea that I have. Let me know what are the use cases that I'm missing. Are these designs accessible? Do these designs follow our design system? Things like that. That's kind of my general process, and that's kind of for exploration, but for prototyping, I think it's slightly different. I think it's more about, me now knowing the exact flow and, structure of that design, and it's a lot more, like, iterating on a cursor, on a Claude to get it exactly how I want it to be.
Yeah, I see. So when it so when it comes to this initial phase, yeah, I agree. It's very easy to jump straight into, for example, Claude and just give it like make a success, and it will just go. It will
Yeah.
because the thing with these tools is they will always do whatever you ask of them, right? They will never say no. So yeah, it's on us to kind of stop for a second and say like, all right, what do I actually want to do? How do I actually want it to work? And if I understand you correctly, you're using wireframes just because they're faster, right? To kind of just draw on the idea. But let's say you have a new feature, new module that you want to add, and you design the steel path, right? Like the
Mm.
steel thread, like the core flow of this particular case. Do you jump immediately? Like, what happens next? Let's say you figure this path out. What happens
Mhm.
next?
Yeah. I think, like, it really depends. I think for a very maybe, like, a simpler feature, because I work in a larger enterprise, I think a lot of these, patterns, components, and styles, we have a system for that, so there's, like, less exploration there, like, it's a lot about, like, adhering to the system of, your brand and your enterprise and your team. So for adding a small feature, usually I would just be able to do that by myself on Figma and kind of like iterate with my folks, my partners, my stakeholders, and then, go from there. But if it's a larger feature, and something that we haven't really done before, there's like no precedence, previously for this feature, then there's for me, I like to bring in AI just to make sure that we're covering all of our edge cases and making sure that, the idea is as sound as it could be. So I would first do a few wireframes, like you said, that like steel flow on Figma first. And then I would bring those designs, those wireframes I used to bring it into Cursor because I think like for our company, we had access to Cursor first. But now,
Yeah.
Claude Code is like the new hot thing. So that's the tool that I'm working with, more often these days. So I would bring it to Claude and kind of, bring in that wireframe, describe it, describe to Claude what I'm trying to build. This is what I have so far. Does that make sense? Any other, ways that I could approach this? Is there anything that I'm not considering? I recently, in our company, we had this talk with a really cool woman who's working and innovating in AI called Ali Miller. And she was describing, oftentimes when she ideates, she has this like boardroom of directors. She would craft these like personas. Like the example that she gave was, kind of funny, but she would have like, I don't know, a Mickey Mouse there or like like a Walt Disney. And those would be her personas, her board members, and she would throw like ideas out in the boardroom, and these board members would give her their feedback based on who they
Mm,
are, whether they're like a innovator or entrepreneur or maybe like someone who is much more in like the literary space or like in the scientific space. Like they would give her their different perspectives. And I feel like that's also a really interesting and like really cool way to jumpstart ideas or to like tap into to like a or starting a new bigger project, like a feature that we haven't really done before. Like I do think it's valuable to cover all perspectives before finalizing on that one route to move forward with. So that's something that I'm trying to do as well, like create my own boardroom members, if you will. Yeah.
which characters did you choose?
I still need to figure out mine. I don't think it's gonna be Mickey Mouse, but probably
Yeah,
people
so
that I
what
admire.
I see over here is this kind of a use of AI to kind of get different perspectives, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
was that even before you jump in, before you start doing anything, you just have these conversations. Of course, you could have conversations with your team members, but I guess this is like the step even before, right? That you come up even more informed. And yeah, and how do you do this? Is this do you plan to do it like a skill or how do you physically do it?
Yeah, skills are definitely a big one. I still need to create more complex skills in my opinion. I think right now my skills are like very simple. They're like, make sure to have a plan, make sure to kind of like describe every step that you're doing. It's like still quite general. But I have found that, kind of just like looking at other people vibe code and the skills that they're building, I'm getting personally very inspired by how I could further add depth to my skills. For example, some of the skills that other people are creating, I've been seeing how they've been adding kind of like conversational guidelines in there. So,
Mm-hmm.
just like giving a little bit more context to what I do, like I work on creating an AI assistant at our company, and part of working for an AI assistant type of product is, there is conversational guidelines that we have implemented into the product so that there's some sort of structure when as a user you engage with the AI. So, maybe it starts with an overview and then it gets into the details and then it gives you next steps and things like that. And when to give you text versus when to give you UI components to kind of disambiguate things like that. So part of what I've seen that people do is they've been able to have those guidelines be described in a skill. And so the next time that they're trying to create a new feature and they're trying to do something, maybe like this feature is related to conversations, then they'd be able to use that skill to kind of give them advice on how they should implement this new feature. Like this feature, has to follow these conversational guidelines. And the beauty of this is once you create a skill like that, it's really nice to be able to share with other people in your company so that we're all aligned kind of on this on the same wavelength almost or like on the same patterns of designing. I think that's a that's a more accurate way to describe it. Like the way that I'm designing sometimes gets lost in translation to another team, right? Because another team has their own priorities. So if we created these skills and we were able to publish it, then other teams would be able to take these skills, like maybe the skill is conversational guidelines. So when they're creating something that's related to the AI assistant, that's related to, interacting with AI, then they have all of these guidelines kind of embedded in their tools so that, they won't need to, reference a physical document or keep going back to something to make sure that they're aligned with these patterns. It'll automatically come to them through these tools, which I find, super cool that this is something that
Hmm.
we're trying to work on.
Yeah, that's kind of like a design system for conversation UI, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like, it's really interesting. I think we're evolving from Figma design systems into these like vibe coding systems. And it's all of the kind of like the tokens, all of the styles and the components that you have on Figma.
Totally,
Now we're kind of
totally.
like lifting it and like trying to figure out what does that system look like on like a
I
cursor.
mean, this is totally the case, because as you were saying of this rules kind of embedded in the skills and how you can have them share them, then it just popped to my head that I don't know if saw, you probably saw because it's all over the internet today, that there's this new tool Stitch from, I
Yes.
mean, Stitch is not a new tool, but it
Right.
has a new functionalities right now. So all over the internet there are all this posts like Figma is dead, stuff like that.
Right, I've
But
heard that.
basically, yeah, I mean like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But the thing that it does is it can extract from the website your design system and it stores it as a markdown file.
Mhm.
So this is pretty much what you said, like this transition from having design system as a visual element to having design system as something that is described in a markdown file that upon generating you can just
Yeah.
use, and I guess it can be a lot more versatile because in the Figma you can have just the visual stuff, and right now wherein we have so much chat conversations,
Mhm.
maybe it would be good to include this guidelines regarding the communication, as you said, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yes, I think the skills are essentially like that markdown file where you kind of describe all of like the different like stylistic choices and components that you've used, but yes, I think what we're trying to do is also just overlay that human factor to it as well. And to give an example, it's like in our product, there are kind of these like save points that we have in the conversation. Like if you've created something and you want to save this like artifact that you've created, how do you do that, right? Like how do we provide these almost like games, like these like checkpoints throughout your journey or your
Yeah.
conversational kind of progress. So right now these save points are quite complicated, or that's probably not okay, maybe not a great word, but they're complex. Let's just say that. We have simpler save points and we have more like save points for high risk interactions or choices that the user has made. So when to use what, right now, it's very much a pattern and interaction or conversational pattern that us as the design team that we're familiar with, but it's not easily conveyed to another team, for example, who hasn't really been working on this. So I think one of our goals is to use these skills to kind of overlay these, the human knowledge that we have on like why we design certain patterns and embed that into the skills as well, so that in the future, any designer who, might not have worked on a project before can understand the history and logic that went into creating a feature. And they could, potentially just ask AI, like, okay, so, I want to design this feature, I this is what it looks like. How do I embed it into the system? And they would be able to tell that designer, based on what you have here, it looks like it's more of a low risk, design, for example. So you kind of have to treat it like so. So yeah, those are some things that are, I'm really excited for.
Well, that's actually super interesting. As you were saying about this, when how do you actually collaborate with other people on conversational interface, because with Figma it's so easy. I can see your cursor, I can see everything, right? It's so easy. We just take it for granted that collaboration kind of is easy like that. When you
Yeah,
write documents or code, you can see documented code, and you kind of have, let's say, the patterns that you repeat.
yeah.
But how do you actually navigate this space that, for example, if you're working on some specific part, that for example, you don't create two different personalities within one
Right.
UI?
Yeah, I think, like, these skills are definitely one part of it, making sure that everybody is aligned, especially for larger teams. I do see a lot more I feel like a lot more designers will also kind of transition into, like, that engineering space of, like, using GitHub more, using, like, repos, creating branches and, like, merging. Like, I think there's gonna be a shift where, a lot more designers are gonna be on GitHub or GitHub-like products now, working with other designers and not engineers. And there might be, there probably will definitely be a collaboration between engineers and designers as well. And I've been seeing news where, like, in a lot of fast-moving teams or, like, startup companies, even designers are, invited to push code now. So that's really shifting these, like, role dynamics in the industry, which is really awesome. But yeah, I think right now some of the ways that we've been collaborating is, yes, we're still using Figma. That's I don't think that we should forget about it. I think there's, like, benefits and value to using Figma, but now I see more of us on our vibe coding products, pushing code, creating branches, and kind of having more of a system on our vibe coded products to track progress and changes now. Instead of maybe, like, creating pages in, your Figma files, now it's like creating branches and, like, merging your branches and, having demos and making sure that people are doing the right things on their prototypes. And yeah, there's it's definitely a really interesting space to be working in right now. Yeah.
you know, we introduced dev mode in Figma to get developers into Figma, but now they retaliated and they got us into GitHub.
Yeah, you know what? That's so true. Hey, what works, works.
Yes, yes. And when you see the current, as we're kind of speculating a little bit over here, but as you're looking at the changes in your workflow within the time, how do you think the role of Figma will change within the next, let's say, 3, 6 months?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think we're already talking about, like, what is the future of Figma systems, Figma design systems. I think we briefly talked about it, which is like, a lot of large companies, or even, like, if you're working with a brand, there's, system design is a very big aspect, an important aspect of what you're working on, making sure that you're adhering to all of these, like, product guidelines, branding guidelines, interaction patterns, things like that. And right now, all of that kind of lives on Figma. Um, and so a big part of it, I think, is in the next few months or so, I do think more of these patterns and, like, design systems and or interaction patterns are going to shift into our vibe coding products. Right now, we're already, like, seeing that happen. We have an internal tool where we have, basically, like, templates of different products. Like, Adobe is a big company. We have many different products, and it's not reasonable to and not efficient to start from scratch, right? To, like, every time I want to, create a prototype for something, I have to build the entire product. Like, I have to make the header, the navigation bar, like, that's just not very efficient. So we're seeing ourselves, like, creating a lot of these templates already and sharing that with the public and other, teams to reuse to quickly iterate faster. And now, like, building on top of that, now we have these, like, essential templates. We're now building repositories, like my team, including myself, we're trying to build these interactable components or patterns on our internal tooling to share these patterns and components to other team members. So what that looks like is pretty much like on Figma where you have a page for components, but literally now is going to be on, for us it's an internal tool, but it's going to be on that internal tool where people can, it's almost like a sandbox where they play around with it. They can learn, what it does. They can interact with it in real time and, maybe duplicate that into their project and kind of see how that works in real life. So that's kind of some of the things that I see myself and my teams working towards. And I feel like, a lot of teams out there, are probably heading in similar directions.
Yeah, so this it feels like this design system is it's totally gonna be something like design system 2.0. You know, it's gonna be not just visuals, but also the logic of the conversational
Hmm.
logic. It is also gonna be these patterns that you can easily just take, like let's say pre-prototype stuff,
Yes.
kind of like the pre-vibe coded, where you can take it, use it. Yeah. And because of this, yeah, the whole process is just way faster, right? You can focus on actually just adding stuff instead of rebuilding everything
Yeah.
that there already was. So you're actually moving faster. But because of this, also, if you take something that's already done, don't you have to start your work in AI, in Claude already, because you
Mm.
imported that part?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think maybe right now, because we're almost in this like transition phase, I mean, we still have so much content on our Figma. So it is easier for us to, I mean, for smaller features, for things that don't require too much interaction, maybe I'm just like adding a new button, for example, or a new badge, like that. I feel like it is still more efficient to be on Figma because we already have
Hmm.
all of this like great work that we've built over the years and this foundation there that allows designers to quickly make changes visually on Figma. But I do see, like, for the future when we're maybe redesigning a whole product, like making much bigger changes or creating a feature that is much more complex and requires like a lot more moving parts, then yeah, the value of having these like you said, pre-coded components or pre-vibe coded components and having these templates and being able to quickly just like jump into cursor to put everything together. I feel like that's when, this becomes much more valuable.
Yeah, that's because as you said, you're a huge company, right? So you have this huge package of assets that kind of allows you to do it. But when I think about in the contrast, if you were talking about a smaller team, I mean, it probably wouldn't even make sense to go to Figma to edit it. You will just edit it straight over there, right? And
There, yeah.
yeah, we work straight on the copy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the tooling, there is there. You said that you were using Cursor and you were using right now you're using Claude. I remember for me it's insane because first moment when like when I saw Cursor in my head, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. There's
Mhm.
what more could one want, right? And then and
Yeah.
then Cloud Code was released. I started using it. I've totally forgot about Cursor, and I was like, goodbye. That you were my first love, but goodbye. But and
Yes.
right now I'm looking at a Cloud Code, and I have the same thing. I'm like, oh my
Mm.
God, this is perfect. This is everything I want. So
Yeah.
in your workflows. Um, if I understand this correctly, it seems to me like you're sometimes using Cursor, sometimes using Claude. Do you have
Yeah.
specific use cases for each of those? This episode is sponsored by us. We're paying for everything, for tools, for management, for pretty much everything that goes into production of these videos. Our core goal is to share the knowledge of design, of AI with everybody who wants to learn for free. This podcast is and will always be for free, but if you wish to support us and help us in this venture, I would really appreciate it. You can go to our website, which is nueva.design, And over there's a $9 package that helps us create content like this. This is totally optional. Thank you for being with us. And now back to the podcast.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we've only recently started using a lot more Claude now. And we also have enterprise accounts now. So that's why we're investing a lot more time on Claude. Previously it was Cursor. So you've kind of caught us in this like transition moment where we're using both. Right now, my preliminary reaction is I think Claude is much smarter, obviously, and it has all of these amazing skills that you can download from the community or just download from their marketplace, and you can connect it to so many different MCPs for different products to make it even more powerful. I think that's definitely the strength of Claude Code and Claude in general. Um, Cursor though, I still has a soft space in my heart. I do think Cursor has grown over even just these past few months. I think when I started using Cursor heavily, like, I realized that there was a lot of friction. There was a lot of iteration that I needed to just get this one small thing correct, and I don't know if other people resonate with me there, but it was such a frustrating process. But, over the even just, like, these last few months, I've definitely seen a change in, I think maybe the LLMs that it's using, but it has definitely gotten smarter, and more accurate over time. I find myself having to repeat myself less now to Cursor. I really like how you can also embed, Claude into Cursor. You can work with,
Yes.
Claude in the terminal and have Cursor there. And I think like Cursor is nice where I do think this product, like the shell of this product is really nice to iterate visually. Like you have your product that you're working on in a container, in a space there. You have your conversational chat, you have your terminal. I do think like it's great for iterating something that you're working on that's like very interactive and very visual. Now it also has this tool where you can like select individual components and kind of fine tune your editing so that it's not.
Right on the canvas, right?
Yes, exactly, right on the canvas. It's kinda like Figma Make now. So there's I feel like there's still benefit with using Cursor where it's nice for visual work that you're doing. It's nice to kind of like, create prototypes very quickly on Cursor. I think Claude, yeah, I also really do love Claude, like all of the skills that you could embed in there, but, you have Cursor and you can have Claude at the same time. I don't think it's like either or,
¿Por qué
right?
no
Like,
los dos?
yeah, just have them all. Like, have them all be your AI assisted buddies and help you in creating these awesome pieces of work really quickly. Yeah, like I think like it's not about if one product is the best and that's the only product you should use. I think it's definitely going to be like an ecosystem of products in the future, and everybody probably has their own choices on what they prefer as well. Like maybe somebody else likes Lovable more, and they could integrate, Lovable with a Claude. I feel like those are the things that people are going to be doing more of in the future, like combining different tools to best suit their use cases.
Yeah, that's gonna be quite interesting, because there are two scenarios. Either we will have many, but because for me, it kind of feels like the moment where we were had all these canvas tools. There was InVision Studio, there was Sketch, there was Figma,
Vision.
there was a lot of yes, there was a lot of different stuff. But then finally, we all kind of agreed that okay, this is the tool that we use, and that it kind of merged into one solution.
Mm,
So maybe we're in this transition phase right now, but maybe not. Maybe there will be a lot of different winners, and it will be kind of like Android and Apple, where you have like,
right,
let's
right.
say, a couple companies competing with each other. So I'm very curious to see that. So
Too, yeah.
when you say, because I remember you had a lot of experience with playing with different tools like Builder, Lovable, stuff like that, right? And it's literally insane because before we started, Fireship dropped this new video today about this Google Stitch, you know? So I have
Mhm.
people all over the place texting me like, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" I'm like, "Yes."
How come
I
not?
also have YouTube, but
Right, right.
there's a lot of people. Every time a new AI tool comes, I get a lot of messages like, "Oh my God, anti-gravity. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, this." I would like to hear your take about, it's just your personal opinion. We're not choosing the market winner over here, just your
Right.
personal opinion as you've been playing with these different tools. Maybe we could do some kind of a exercise where we go through the tools that you tried and we label them. Oh, this is for this, this is for this, this is for this. And personally, I like that. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah. That would be a really interesting exercise because I definitely have not done that myself. You know, good. Yeah, let's definitely do it. Uh, so
Let's start from the very beginning,
yeah,
When did your AI addiction start?
yeah. I think like Cursor and Claude are definitely like top for me, like S tier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably for everyone, for a lot of people as well. I think they are kind of the I mean, especially Claude, I think that is probably the leading tool right now, especially with like the co-work and Claude Code, the new drops. People are really excited for that. OpenClaw, I this is something that I've been trying to get into. I have colleagues that have used it, and I'm like, wow, personal assistant, creating your own personal assistant that does everything for you. Sounds amazing. So that is something that I do feel like is great for maybe not enterprise because I feel like there's definitely like privacy issues there. I don't know how open companies will be on allowing their employees just to like get all of their data on their laptops and
Yeah, I
just
don't
do
think
stuff
that's
with
gonna
it.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, like I do think like that's great for personal usage. But Claude and Cursor is great for enterprise. We have it as our enterprise tools. Um, yeah, I think it's like a great starting point. I think Builder and Lovable are kind of similar in the way that they're catering to kind of like a non-coding audience. So it's very user friendly. It's easy to learn. The learning curve isn't that high. And it's very visual, which I really appreciate. It kind of feels like a Figma Make almost, where, you're selecting actual elements on that page and then just telling, your prompt input bar, like, this is what I want, and it'll make those iterations. It's very user friendly. I think those are also really great intro products as well. I
And
do
what do you
think.
think about those
Mhm.
for designers? Do you think there are good tools for designers or they're more like for casuals?
Um I think, I'm a very like, hey, whatever works for you, whatever floats. Like I have had designers who love using Lovable and Builder, and then, some people are like, okay, it's not enough. Like I want to do something more, complex and more powerful, and I want to use Claude, with all of these like different skills. Like, there's just different needs and interests, I guess. So I don't think like if you're, a hardcore designer, you shouldn't use like introductory tools or something. Like I think like and I'm not saying Builder and Lovable are introductory tools. I think they're just like a little bit more user friendly and easier to learn at first. But if that's a tool that, as a designer, you find that it's the most valuable for you and you can get most of your work done through those tools, and, why not just stick to Lovable and Builder? Like if that accomplishes everything you need. I think for myself, like I've just like, I love reading the news, like hearing from all these like new features and like hearing about all the cool new products that other people are building. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm continuously trying to push myself to use new products. So that's also, like, another reason why I haven't just sticked to, I guess, like, Lovable and Builder, even though those are the first tools that I've used. I'm kind of now getting into, Claude Code and still continuing to use Cursor, because I find myself, I feel like these products are continuously growing, and
Yeah.
maybe some of these other tools are growing less of and kind of still, what they were originally were. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, I guess, just depends on what you want. And then there's just a bunch of other chat tools as well. Like, I think, like, oh, I shouldn't say chat tools, but there's a bunch of other AI, LLMs, and products out there that I like to use as references. I don't find myself actively searching on those tools as much, but it's still really good to just keep an eye out on what they're doing and what they're working on. Oh my god, Perplexity is a great one. I love their UI, and, the different, like, micro animations that they have. I love, Manus as well, or Manu, still don't know how to pronounce it, but they have, like, really cool, like, reasoning features, I feel like, that I haven't really seen in other tools. Um, what else? I mean, Gemini is a great one. It's y good. I think I mostly use Gemini, honestly, for imagery for some reason. I just find myself there using, like,
Yeah, Nano Banana is good.
Nano Banana, right? Generating images. Um, yeah. Oh, Stitch is great too. I've been mostly using Stitch kind of as an MCP and playing around with that, on Claude Code.
What do you mean using it as MCP?
So I believe there is a Stitch MCP that you could integrate into, your other products like a Claude Code or
Mm-hmm.
Cursor. Yeah, I don't know if you can integrate it into Cursor actually, but I have been with, Claude Code, and essentially it just, instead of you actively going to Stitch to do something or generate something, you
Ah,
can just
yeah.
do that on Claude Code. Yeah. Which is cool. I think Stitch is great for maybe, like, commercial products or, like, websites. I think they have, like, so many different templates, right? It's like taking all of your website making websites like Squarespace and, um
It's the Squarespace of
yeah, it's like the
AI.
Squarespace of AI, right? Like, you have it all in one bucket and you can just generate a billion ideas. But I will say, like, the more I played around with it with maybe our enterprise products, I do feel like it's difficult to, maybe yeah, I think, like, there's still a gap with using Stitch-like products with enterprise products, because I do think there's just so much more complexity in enterprise products, um, that you won't be able to get Stitch to do very quickly or intelligently.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you're saying. You know, I find myself hard, like, I find it hard to justify for me personally. This is my opinion, but we like hot takes over here. If you want
Mhm.
somebody who agrees with you, open ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for me personally, it is hard to justify using these tools when Cloud Code is so good. Like,
Yeah,
why would I narrow my possibilities with these tools if I can kind of get the same thing with Cloud plus
right.
a lot more? So that's why every time for example, this Stitch right now, I'm like, all right, let's see it, and people are going crazy about this extracting design system, but I'm pretty sure that if I ask Claude to do it, he would do the same thing.
Yeah,
You know,
that is fair, I don't doubt that.
it
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's that's why I'm kind of always talking with people and trying to understand, why, what would I gravitate toward these tools? And probably the only thing that comes to my mind is this topic in the last episode of the podcast. We were talking about this removal of the canvas. That at the
mhm,
very beginning we had Figma, right? And
yeah,
then you usually jump to something like Lovable, like something like that, and you still have a canvas and you have a chat. And then as you progress, you kind of forget the canvas and you're just staying with a chat. So there's kind of a smooth transition in this. So for me personally, these tools are kind of good as a transition tools for designers, because it's just not a strict hard switch from canvas to the chat. Like
Yeah, yeah,
there's something in between, as kind of like you said with a cursor, right? That you had this possibility to see what you're actually doing,
yeah.
which I still think is amazing. But I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember when we spoke last time, you said that you are actually using Claude and Figma MCP. Is this correct?
Oh, yes, yes, and I'm using the Figma MCP, yes.
So could you tell a little bit about it? How does the process look like?
Yeah, it's great where you can so I think because we have enterprise accounts, I think for maybe bigger companies, it's harder for you to get Claude Code to actually write on your Figma just because of like privacy restrictions. But I've been playing around with it on my personal accounts in my free time, and it's really cool. Like you could get Claude Code to basically read your wireframes or, the designs that you have on your Figma files, kind of get it to, summarize what you've done, give you all like the specs that you've been using as well, like the design systems that you've been using, and also like based on that information, tell Claude to create new content based on, your design system and kind of the changes that you want, I guess. So, yeah, it's really interesting. I think, like, right now, it's great for maybe, like, a personal website, right? Or, like, maybe, more, like, templated mobile or website designs, because there's like more structure to it. There's a lot more patterns in creating a website than there is like designing an enterprise product. So, when you use Claude Code to create those type of um, websites that have more structure, I do think it's a lot easier now. You don't really have to even have that canvas like you mentioned. It's very much just like type in what you want, and then boom, it does it for you.
Yeah.
Um,
But at the same time, when yeah, because I agree that there's a lot of templated stuff when you're going, let's say, on the lower in scale. But at the same time, as we spoke, in enterprise, there's a lot of work is adhering to the standards that are already there, right? So in a perfect scenario, I at least imagine it would be kind of perfect that you have all of this standards and then you chat with it and it kind of takes all of those and applies them, right?
yes, so I'm definitely not ruling out that in the future that this is definitely like Claude creates like a enterprise Claude or something that's like perfectly for enterprise teams. I think right now we're probably still not there yet.
Do you
Uh,
think mainly because of the privacy?
There's definitely the privacy, and I think there needs to be a way for Claude or like, a tool, an AI tool to consume everything that's been going on. Like I think there's so much more moving parts in enterprise products. There's so many different stakeholders and teams making changes constantly. I think there needs to be like a systematic way to like capture everything that's going on in the current state first of all, and then all of like your stakeholders' goals that you're trying to make changes on for this system. Like there isn't really that type of dynamic or tooling right now, like AI tool for that. Like right now, like I feel like it's great for if you're creating a website because it's very the goal is very enclosed. Like the scope is very tight, right? Like you know what you
Mm-hmm.
want to make. Um Generally there's a pattern for websites as well. Like is there a hero image? Is there like, an about me page, things like that. It's easy for AI to consume and understand and, bring you an output that makes sense. But for enterprise, I feel like it's just so much ambiguity almost. There's a lot of like ongoing process and there's multiple teams involved and
You move one step, you gotta talk with somebody, then you move next step.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, how do we capture that and use like an AI tool to design in that type of space? So far I don't I yeah, I haven't really seen a product that will be able to, like, easily create enterprise products. But yeah, maybe one day in the future, especially like if, companies decide to share all of their data to a product and maybe if there's like huge amounts of data like constantly going back and forth into a product, then yeah, like, why not? The possibilities are endless. Maybe then because there's continuous like updated, knowledge on the system, and maybe if, there's, like, stakeholders also constantly giving advice and guidance and, like, guardrails to the AI, then it would be able to output what you want. But yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's actually interesting because, uh, as you said, in the smaller teams, there is not a lot of stakeholders, right? So in the smaller teams, execution usually is the core issue, right? Like you gotta execute, you gotta move
Right,
fast,
right.
and that's where this like generating everything works perfectly. But over here, as we're getting up with a scale, the problem is it's not just about executing, it's also about talking with certain people, getting the like getting it all that I would say getting coherence, getting this understanding, right? And
Mhm.
this is something that is just gotta be you, right? And
Well, hopefully that we don't lose not all designers lose their job in the future, but, um yes, I do think, like I think you definitely nailed it, like, execution for companies with, like, execution as their focus, I do think AI tools you know, are there for a reason, they are the executors and they do it really well and quickly. But yeah, in larger enterprises, like, execution is definitely one part of it. There's, like, alignment, there's, like, understanding what that vision is, and the vision, changes from time to time as well.
you mean
Uh,
every day.
yeah, every day. Part of it is, like, the communication, right? Like, trying to get buy-in from your other teams, like, "This is the new vision, guys, like, are we on board or not?" Like, all of those things, I don't see AI replacing just yet. But, I'm a open-minded person, if you will, like, I don't know, in the future, AI becomes all, encompassing and things
Yeah,
change from there,
yeah.
yeah, who knows?
Yeah. We'll see about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And when it comes to this, I'm gonna roll back to the MCP because this is
Oh, yeah.
super interesting for me. And so obviously from Figma, using MCP to connect to clouds, this part is, let's say, something that is pretty sturdy, right? It works pretty well. But as you are, for example, exploring, as you said that you are, for example, doing wireframes and then feeding it into the cloud, um, have you ever thought about the workflow where you're connecting it through the MCP the other way around? So you're describing it to the cloud and it creates wireframes, let's say in Figma for you, from
Yeah.
which then you work further?
Yeah, I've definitely done that. I haven't gotten it to write in my Figma, just disclaimer there, just because, enterprise restrictions and all that.
Ah,
But
yes,
I've gotten
yes.
Claude to generate wireframes for me, just in like a browser situation. And it's it's interesting. I think like maybe because I think I could definitely improve this process. I think, like, when I generated it, it had really strong UX patterns, like,
Mm.
"Hey, click this button," "Navigate here to do this to achieve your goals." I think it was very reasonable and made a lot of sense, and they were able to generate multiple use cases for me. Um, but it wasn't editable, like, it wasn't in a,
It's hard to move
wireframe
forward.
ready. Yeah, like, I would have to then take that UX and then apply it to my designs. Um, I think I maybe could solve this issue with feeding it in like, uh, like a skill or something that has all of our branding components, right? The patterns and everything and all the styles so that it's more accurate in that sense, but I think without that initial foundation, like without that initial setup, the results that you're gonna get is not not very accurate to, the wireframes that you've created, if that makes sense.
Yes. I totally understand that. And It right now that I think about it, it's kind of obvious that the larger the enterprise, the more, let's say, security checks you have, and this connection this way, I mean, it's not very stable right now, and it's not let's say, the most predictable thing. So of course, this is not going to be something that they're going to be like, yeah, sure, let's send everything we have up into
Right.
the space, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
But I think for
So
personal projects, I think it's yeah, definitely doable. I think, like, if you could allow it to read all of your Figma files, your stylistic guidelines, patterns, components, and everything, like, I I'm assuming that it would be able to create, much more accurate wireframes that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it, to kind of now I'm gonna zoom out a little bit,
Yeah, of
because we
course.
we talked a lot about the process, about it and everything. But overall, as you're working in Adobe right now, do you feel that there is any push towards AI within the company?
Oh, 100%. 1,000%.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So, if you can talk about it, how can you feel it? Like, what are the symptoms?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is like private information. I think it's very public that, Adobe is trying to integrate a lot more AI features and trying to become like the innovators of AI. And on our team, I think we are really trying to become like the enterprise innovators of AI, if that
Yes.
makes sense, because I work on the enterprise side. We're trying to see our leading competitors and see how we can, make ourselves, unique, a step ahead, things like that. And it's surfaced not in just like the work that I'm doing, but our leadership supports it as well. Our CEO, I think he's very vocal about this, that
Yes.
he often talks about, AI and, AI tools, not only just on our enterprise side, but also, on the consumer side with like Creative Suite, and all of the amazing Adobe products that you and I are familiar with growing up. But yeah, I think it's just, it's very empowering for me. I think like I have always been really interested in working in this like technology and innovation space. And it's great when you're working at a company that pushes you forward in that, provides you with the support, not only in just like the teams, but also in the tools as well to get you to explore more and learn more. I think for me, it's a great balance of using tools, but also learning at the same time. Like, I think everybody, even outside of our company, is growing and learning constantly in this AI space. And that's super awesome. Like, I think like there hasn't really been a time like this, maybe ever since um the World Wide Web boom, I guess, back then.
Yeah.
But
Or
now I
first mobile phones,
yeah, the
right?
first mobile phones, right? Like, now we're kind of in this era of AI and, everything's just, like, moving very quickly and, we're, trying to keep up as well, with, like, learning and doing and innovating at the same time. So, yeah, it's definitely great. I
Yeah.
think, like, working at
I
startups
think
are great too
I
right
think
now.
the thing is, right now we are trying to figure out how to add AI everywhere, right? Like,
Yeah, for
maybe we're
sure.
gonna add a little bit too much, but then we're gonna reduce later on. But first of all, we're gonna experiment, like, how to add it, how to use it. And if I understand it correctly, it feels like the leadership just rewards this, let's say, pushes towards AI, right? Like, you're in a very fortunate place to work something that is very specifically AI, right?
Mm.
And to kind of, I think, to be able to add the functionality of this newest tools, you also gotta know what are the possibilities. So how do you educate yourself? How do you stay on trend, on the curve of knowing
Yeah.
what is currently possible and what people do?
Yeah, definitely. I think our media is definitely a big one. I, from time to time, listen to like AI podcasts, on my social media. I'm like following a lot of like AI creators or like AI news channels. I read about them in articles. My team also kind of works in this AI space, so I kind of like naturally get news that way as well, where we just like chat about the latest things that are happening.
Yeah, it's good to surround yourself with people who also have
Yes,
this kind
yes,
of.
definitely. And I mentioned like startup a little while ago because I think like there is still the thing where, as an enterprise company, we are a larger company and we, just move slower than like very small, fast, agile startups. And so I think like for us, a lot of seeing what other people doing is a major, I guess, like, benefit or information pool for us, like, just seeing what other people are doing. Because ourselves, we might not be able to get there immediately, but we're definitely getting there. I think if you work in a startup, I think, like, that's something that probably happens even faster, like, you see something and then you're actively doing it already, like, it just, you know yeah,
Maybe even too fast sometimes.
yeah, maybe too fast sometimes, true. But there's a different timeline, I guess, between, like, larger companies and, smaller startups, as an
Yeah.
example.
So, would you like to share your favorite, I don't know, YouTube channel, podcast, apart from this, of course, and
Yeah, of course. This is definitely number 1, everyone. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. How I AI is a really good podcast. It's really interesting. You can hear it on Spotify. I think, like, even on just your social media, like, on a TikTok or Instagram. Just, like, make sure you, like and follow creators that are actively posting about the latest news on AI. I think, like, if you're already scrolling and doom scrolling, might as well be receiving, relevant conversation about the current, era and in technology as well. Yeah, like, I think, like, don't force yourself to, watch a documentary on AI if you're not into that. It's like whatever types of media you're consuming right now, I like to, like, incorporate, a little AI into there to make it more sustainable for me. Yeah.
all right, all right. Yeah, that's good. Then you kind of make it over the long term, right?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, I feel like I would be burnt out. Like, if I had to read AI books all of a sudden, I would be like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
cannot do this
yeah.
anymore."
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. So, yeah, Patricia, I think we covered all the key elements that we had today. It was
That's
a really
awesome,
beautiful
yeah.
conversation, but we have a little tradition over here that at the
Yeah.
very end, we like to talk about the portfolio and case studies.
Mm.
As you're seeing your work that you're doing day to day, you and your colleagues, and you see how the industry changes, what kind of advice would you give to people regarding how would a portfolio and case study and like what's in it of a modern designer look like?
Yeah, I think portfolios have probably definitely changed, since a few years ago. I myself am redoing my portfolio on, using vibe coding, and I see a lot of other people also vibe coding their portfolios now. I think it's probably important if you're working in like a technology space that you demonstrate that you're familiar with AI tools since, everybody is kind of pushing towards AI and kind of creating new features in AI. So showing that you have expertise or you have knowledge in AI tools, I think is definitely really important. And yeah, you don't need to hear me say that. I feel like everybody is saying that. Like I'm not adding anything to the pool, but yeah, having like your portfolio vibe coded is great. Having like really interesting interactions to demonstrate that you're kind of like mastering AI or like mastering animations, things like that, is really nice as well. For me, I kind of like when I came out of college, my professors would always say to show process. And I still feel like that, stays true to me. I think like it's just as valuable to show your process as it is to show the end outcome of your work. Not saying that you have to write down every single detail that it took to get to your final output, but making sure that you're conveying like your thought process, like how do you work through problems? Um, what are the challenges that you had to go through and how you yourself made an impact in those challenges and how you kind of like got the team or got yourself to the end point, I think is really important as well for content
Mm-hmm.
wise.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. Let's say, and if let's say you saw 10 portfolios and each one of them was vibe coded. Each of them was generated, it's solely
Mhm.
live, and and each one of them, let's say, has free works, and you had to choose one person with whom you had to work. What would you look at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I have seen AI websites created, but I do think it's important to kind of have your own personality overlaid to it. I don't know if like, if you relate or other people relate to this, but oftentimes when I see these AI generated websites, I feel like I could tell that it's AI generated. So I feel like it's like, it's great that you're using AI already, but I think, what makes you stand out is if I clearly see that you've overlaid your personality or like your branding onto it. You've kind of put thought into specific interactions and why you use certain interactions, right? Or like animations. I think that would make you stand out compared to if you had just, used AI or like a Stitcher or something to just generate it. Yeah, if you just generated it without putting any thought into it.
All right. All right, Patricia. So thank you. That was a really good
Yeah.
episode and really a lot of content over here. I think our listeners are gonna love it.
No,
So thank
awesome.
you for
Yeah.
being with us, and thanks.
Yeah, thanks for being an amazing host, Dan. Yeah, definitely let me know when you're sharing this podcast. I would love to, help you hype it up and share it with my colleagues or like my network as well. I think like it's a really cool project that you're working on. So, yeah, thanks for inviting me.